Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. So today's video is going to be a this or that video, and we are going to be going over the Libre line by Yves Saint Laurent. We're going to be going over all 4 fragrances, the pillar and the 3 flankers, which are the Eau de Parfum, the Eau de Parfum Intense, the Eau de Toilette, and the new Le Parfum. I'm gonna just summarize some things for you in the beginning because I find these fragrances to not only perform the same, but smell very similar. And then I'm gonna give you guys the note breakdown and the differences between them because I do find them to be slightly different. So let's go ahead and get into the video. First, I'm gonna go over the perfumers because they are the same throughout the whole entire line. I feel like whenever the perfumers are kept the same, the fragrances kind of stay the same. And whenever they change it, the perfume changes a little bit. Like I've noticed that between the Carolina Herrera fragrances and the Giorgio Armani C line, whenever they change the perfumer, the fragrances change a little bit, and then you almost see flankers within flankers. So the notes behind these 4 were both Anne Filippo and Carlos Benign. So just so you guys know, I'm gonna go in the order that they were released, with the oldest one, the first one being released in 2019. And then every year following that up until 2022, the other fragrances were released. So for the most part, most of the Libre fragrances smell very similar to my nose. And I do find that they all have pretty good to beast mode performance. I've been playing with the Le Parfum and I don't find it to be as beastly as the original and the Intense, but still are pretty good performing fragrances. Even the Eau de Toilette I find to perform very well. There is this kind of picture that they have where they list the intensity. As you can see in the photo, the colors are slightly different. I will say that the original and the Eau de Toilette, the coloring looks very similar, but I did own the 100 ml of the first 3, and you can really notice the color difference between them in the 100 ml bottles. I do think that the Libre Intense and the Le Parfum look even closer. Look at how close they look. I think you can probably see the slight difference if the bottles were larger. And then these are a little bit more full because again, I had 100 mils of these as well. You can't really tell, but this is like a lighter kind of yellow peach. And then this one's kind of a slightly more yellow coloring. But the way you could tell these 2 apart is the Eau de Toilette bottle, even in the 30, 50, and 100 mils, a little bit more narrow. So the first one we are gonna go over is Libre, the Eau de Parfum, and this one was a 2019 release. And this one is described as white floral, citrus, vanilla, aromatic, sweet, powdery, woody, and fruity. I don't really consider this one fruity as much as I consider it kind of just citrus. This one has notes of lavender, mandarin orange, black currant, lavender again in the mid, and then there's orange blossom, jasmine, and then base notes of Madagascar vanilla, musk, cedar, and ambergris. This opens up with a very lavender citrus opening. It's a little bit sharp, and it's probably why this can be off-putting to some people, especially if you don't like the note of lavender. For me, the original is the most edgy out of the line, which I do think that that is what the marketing behind this is. It has Dua Lipa, and she's always in that sleek black suit. And the whole marketing behind it is like free to do what you want. So I do feel like this is supposed to be a more edgy, modern, white floral fragrance. But the lavender and the citrus combo in this one can be a little sharp. Now, I am a big fan of citrus fragrances and freshies, and I do like lavender in my perfumes. I don't necessarily like, now you guys know I say you guys can wear whatever you want, but I did grow up where fragrances were marketed towards men and women. Now, I used to wear Tommy Hilfiger for men in high school, so you guys can wear whatever you want. But I like fragrances that are either unisex or feminine leaning. And for me, this has an edginess to it, and it is a little unisex, but it isn't masculine like it is to other people. It isn't masculine to me, just because I do find this one to be very floral, but it's got that kind of edginess from the lavender. And then as this dries down, you start to get the orange blossom, but it's a little bit more like a bitter orange, not that kind of sickeningly sweet sugary orange that I can get from Orange Blossom, and then I get the clean jasmine, and it's just aromatic. It's got a sweetness to it. When I first got this one, it was very citrus to my nose. I didn't really get the vanilla, but the longer this one sits, you do start to get that touch of sweetness in the base, which is the vanilla. And then, I don't know, I feel like the other notes just blend in here very beautifully. So that is the original Eau de Parfum. Then next we have the Eau de Parfum Intense, and this was released in 2020. This one is described as a vanilla, white floral, lavender, sweet, citrus, aromatic, amber, and powdery. This one has a lot of the same notes. It has that lavender, it has that mandarin, it has that orange blossom, jasmine, that vanilla, the ambergris, and then it's got tonka bean and bergamot. Now, this one surprisingly isn't as citrus heavy in the opening as the original, even though there's bergamot and the mandarin orange. This one, to me, the tonka bean in here is really smoothing this scent out. It's making it a little bit more sweet in combination with that vanilla, and it's a little bit more smooth, and the lavender to me is dialed back. Even though they list it in the top and the mid in this one, I've always said that the lavender in here isn't as strong. I do get it, but it's more floating off in the background, where to me, you can definitely get it in the opening and the original Eau de Parfum. The Intense, it's more about the vanilla being a little bit more amped up, and the tonka bean in combination. It's a little bit more sweet, powdery. The lavender falls in the background, and I don't really get as much of a citrus. This is definitely a little bit more vanilla and a little less citrus than the original. But still, they smell very similar. But if you don't really care for the citrus, maybe you don't want a heavy dose of lavender, you want a little bit more vanilla. I don't think this one's overly vanilla, but I do find this one to be a little bit more sweet because of that vanilla tonka combination that's in here. So that is the Eau de Parfum Intense. Okay, then next we have the Eau de Toilette, and this one was released in 2021. And again, this one is a little bit more narrow, and this one is described as white floral, citrus, lavender, floral, musky, fresh, vanilla, sweet, powdery, and fresh spicy. This one again smells a lot like the original, but it's lighter and it's more musky and more fresh. It's less fresh from citrus and a little bit more fresh from kind of a muskiness that's in here. And then the lavender in here to me is very dialed back. It's almost blended very well in this one, and I don't pick it up as much. There is something clean that lavender kind of gives you, but it's blended very well. And it's just the more light, airy, fresh, musky version. I don't really get vanilla in this one. This one has, again, a lot of the same notes. It has the lavender, the orange blossom, and the jasmine, and the ambergris and the vanilla that's throughout all of them. But this one has musk, it has jasmine tea, it has bergamot in the opening, so it's just a little bit more of a fresher, lighter take. The jasmine tea in here, like, this isn't an overly tea scent to my nose, where in the other fragrances I get more of a jasmine orange blossom combo, and here I get more jasmine. It's more of a soapy, clean jasmine kind of scent. Light, fresh, and airy. And again, that is the Eau de Toilette. Then next we have the Le Parfum version, and this was a 2022 release. So this was described as a vanilla, sweet, citrus, warm, spicy, honey, white floral, aromatic, lavender, floral, and powdery. When I first hauled this one, I said it smelled like a combination of the Intense and a combination of the original with a little bit of spiciness, and now I can say with a little bit more of a different kind of sweetness. I didn't really get the honey when I first got this one, but then I started getting it, but it's not a thick honey. Yeah, so the notes on this one that are different are the ginger and the saffron at the top, and then you get honey and tonka bean, kind of like the vanilla and tonka bean in the Intense, but you get an added note of honey. So this one is sweeter, but surprisingly it's not like a thick sweet like in some of my other honey fragrances. Like in my Scandal fragrances, the honey in there is a little thicker. This one somehow still manages to be not as like thick, dense, or syrupy, at least not to my nose. It's not as vanilla powdery sweet as the Intense, but a little bit more of like a honey sweetness when you think of the scent of honey. And then again, in the opening, I do get that kind of ginger, that kind of zesty ginger, and that bitter sweetness that you get from saffron in the opening. And I do get kind of a spiciness from saffron as well. And then as it dries down, to me, to my nose, it's almost dries down to be more of an intimate, sweet scent. I find the original and the Intense to be stronger to my nose. But in that little picture, they do say that this one is supposed to be the most intense, and it's not, in my opinion. I also feel like the Eau de Toilette and this one are a little more feminine. This one because of the honey, and this one because it's just more light, fresh, and airy. So I would say if you want something a little bit more sharp, a little bit more citrus lavender heavy, go for the original. You want something a little bit more vanilla sweet, still got that slightly lavender, but it's a little bit more off in the background, go for the Intense. You want something lighter, airier, musky, not too loud because maybe you get headaches, I would say go for the Eau de Toilette. This one isn't as loud as the other ones. You want something a little bit more warm, spicy, and sweet, but more on the honey side, go for the Le Parfum version. If I had to rank them, the first one would definitely be the original. Coming in and number 2 would be the Eau de Toilette, just because this is the fresh, muskier version. And then coming in at number 3 would be the Le Parfum, just because this one has a warm spiciness that I really love. I do wish it stuck around just a little bit longer. And then the Intense in number 4, but honestly, I love them all. These two I go back and forth with. But what's nice is they're both sweet. You get the sweetness from both, but this one has that warm spicy that I like. I just find this one to just become more of a skin scent on me after the 2 or 3 hour mark. So they all have great longevity. They all give me 6 to 8 plus hours. I would say I get about 6 or 7 with the Eau de Toilette and the Le Parfum, and then the original and the Intense, I get 8 plus hours. Those two are definitely very good performing fragrances. This line is, in my opinion. I do tend to wear these a little bit more seasonal. If I had to put them in a season, the original would go in spring, the Eau de Toilette would go in summer because it's just fresh and light, and I need fresh and light during the Florida heat. And then we have the Le Parfum and the Intense, and I would put the Le Parfum in fall just because I tend to enjoy warm, spicy more in fall, and then I tend to gravitate towards more of my vanilla fragrances in winter. But both of these are interchangeable. I would wear both of these in fall and winter. And then I do tend to wear this one more in summer, and this one I wear year round. Except for the Le Parfum, I had large bottles of the first 3. I put dents in all of those, and then I passed those on. I went back to the smaller bottles, and then I do have 2 bottles of the original. I have a 50 ml and the limited edition bottle, and I do have this bottle. So the original is definitely my all-time favorite. It's a top 10 for life. So that was my quick review of the Libre line by Yves Saint Laurent. Let me know in the comments below, what is your favorite Libre? Not which one do you dislike. What is your favorite Libre? But that will do it for today's video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.